WRKS Pickens Jackson.
Hey, what do you say we sing a driving song?
There's not going to be any singing around here. Just
real sports.
On the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly.
Oh, this is going to be sweet.
And it's all right here, right now on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
th day of January, 2024. Welcome in. Champ in the Chair Sports Maven on a Thursday. Streaming on the Zone1059.com. Brought to you by Ameristar Casino. Get out and play today at Ameristar. I don't think you can play the Alabama coaching search odds, but you can play a lot. You can play the NFL playoffs. You can play basketball, NBA, and college. A lot of great college action going on last night with Mississippi State getting a win over Tennessee. A lot of other stuff coming up this weekend. You'll have college baseball at Ameristar coming up here in the next month or two. And we'll see. They've gotten so much better with the college baseball, and that's Vegas, allowing people to play that. And they've gotten a lot smarter and better with that, but they'll have that as well. 601-897-1059. That is the Malone Roofing caller line. ecmalone.com is their website, 8337-MALONE. Commercial residential roofing done right with Malone Roofing Services. If you have a problem, you need a quote, you need repairs, a new roof, Malone can do that for you on your home or commercial building. 833-7-MALONE. We're on the Cowboy Maloney's text line, 601-885-3776. Make your house a home. Heaters and air conditioners. More so in the heat, I'm sure, right now. With the cold weather coming, if you need heat, they've got them. Heaters. Cowboy Maloney's, 13 locations around the state of Mississippi, online at cowboymaloneys.com. And, of course, we're on the Clinton Body Shop Twitter feed, at Jake Wim. X at Jake Wim. Courtesy of Clinton Body Shop. OEM factory certified. All the manufacturers you trust at Clinton Body Shop. All right. We've got a lot to do today. Dan Lanning is out of the running for the Alabama coaching job. Now, I'm not going to hold Greg Byrne to this, but he said yesterday it'd be 72 hours. I would expect an Alabama coach by the time we go off the air tomorrow at 6 o'clock. That's what I expect. We'll have Drew DeArmond, Tighter Insider, 3:30. Also, ESPN Radio in the great state of Alabama at 3:30 to get his thoughts now that the dust had settled after we got off the show. He told me he had like 88 missed texts and 6 missed calls and voicemails, and I can't imagine what that was like over there. Rafael Esparza at 4:30 with MyBookie.ag. Michael Bratton, that SEC podcast at 5:15. We'll talk SEC football. All right, so yesterday, betting odds, bet online for the Alabama head coaching job. Dan Lanning was number one at 3-1. He's off the board. Dabo Swinney at 4-1. I would be blown away if he was the guy. Lane Kiffin 5-1. Deion Sanders 6-1. Kalen DeBoer 6-1. Pat Schumer 9-1. Of course, they got Urban Meyer. You know what's interesting is Mike Norvell's name is getting a lot of run. Florida State, he's at 16-1. And if it was in fact Mike Norvell. But a lot to get to here. When you look at on3.com, their hot board, Mike Norvell was at the top of that thing. Lanning was 2, he's off. Sarkisian, DeBoer, Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame, Lane Kiffin, Deion Sanders, Colorado, James Franklin, Dabo Swinney, Mike Vrabel, and Dan Quinn. I can't imagine that Alabama would hire Dan Quinn. I just, some of these I look at and go, no way. No way. I don't know that Dan Quinn gets you excited. Unless you're just looking for somebody to go ahead and hire and then fire to get that over with. So, let's see here. Yeah, John Talty reporting AL.com, 72 hours. That was yesterday. Greg Byrne did have this to say. The astute athletics director at Alabama. He says, as with any coaching search, our goal is to be thorough but expedient. Our ideal candidate will be strong in recruiting and relationship building, player development, excels in X's and O's, and have the overall ability to lead this historic program. There will be plenty of rumors out there during this process. Next time I talk publicly, we will will be to announce our new coach. If you don't hear from me, don't believe it, Roll Tide. That is from Greg Byrne, the athletics director at the University of Alabama. Matter of fact, I better go ahead and follow him just to make sure I'm getting all his updates too. All right, so when you look at Nick Saban, and you look at the impact that he had, not only in the University of Alabama football program, as Connor Townsend said, a lot of times we talk about the pay that coaches get, and it is extremely high for sure. But you look at the pay that coaches get. But let me just read you some numbers here and how much of an impact Nick Saban had on the University of Alabama. Obviously, the 6 national championships, 9 SEC championships, 206-29 career record in 17 seasons. But financially, it's a little bit even crazier. The, quote, Flutie effect is when athletic accomplishments increase exposure and eventually enrollment. That happened. And you can go across the board. Look, Eli Manning comes to Ole Miss. Ole Miss, over the course of the 4 years, their enrollment went up. Dak Prescott, same thing, Mississippi State. There is, believe it or not, a direct correlation to that. And no one did it bigger than Saban. Nick Saban arrived in 2007. Alabama's enrollment increased from 25,000 to 40,000 students. That's a 60% jump compared to a 10% national average. So the national average from 2007 forward to today was 10%. Bama's jumped 60%. But the type of students matter as well. Alabama went from the majority of its student body consisting of in-state students to the majority now being out-of-state students. That is important because these students pay 3 times more in annual tuition. And you people know that to do the whole college deal. If you go out of state, it's going to be a lot more. $32,000 versus $11,000 in annual tuition, and it means Alabama increased its annual revenue by hundreds of millions under Saban. Alabama paid. Now, you'll find very few people on the academic road that will give him credit for this, but I think it's pretty evident. Alabama paid him $130 million over 16 seasons, but you could argue he's worth $1 billion. Nick Saban is the best investment the University of Alabama ever made. And that was said by Robert Witt, Alabama chancellor. Said he was the best investment that the university ever made. Beeb, I know you're working over there, but I have a walk-on pamphlet for the university, the Ohio State Buckeyes, if you want it. Ohio State is accepting walk-on tryouts right now. To be eligible to try out, you must have completed the following. Enrolled in an OSU main campus, on the main campus as a full-time student, with a class scheduled and a cumulative GPA printed to verify. Enrolled in the NCAA Eligibility Center, have a physical completed within the last 6 months, along with a sickle cell trait tests and results, hard copy of your both, completed tryout paperwork. There will be an interest meeting on Thursday, February 1st at 5 p.m. at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center that will serve as a deadline to submit all paperwork. If you cannot submit or attend the meeting, you will not be permitted to try out. So, more bully. B, any of you guys that want to give college football a try, Ohio State's taking tryouts. And, of course, this morning, the trifecta hit. Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots are expected to part ways today after a remarkable 24 seasons together, ending an unmatched run in NFL history that included 6 Super Bowl titles. League sources tell Mike Reese. And, of course, that is from Adam Schefter as well. So you have, in a matter of just days, Pete Carroll out at Seattle, Nick Saban out at Alabama, and now Belichick out for the New England Patriots. And again, Dan Lanning announced earlier today he will remain at Oregon. So he is not wanting any of the Alabama smoke, and I don't really blame him. I mean, he's at a really good program at Oregon. He's doing really big things for that program. They're moving into a new conference, into the Big Ten next year. He's got a good roster coming back. Again, you got to know, kind of the old Kenny Rogers way. You got to know when to hold him, so to speak. Courtesy of Clay Travis, Outkick, Alabama won 1 national title from 1980 to 2009. Maybe they make an incredible hire to replace Nick Saban and keep rolling, but after Bear Bryant, they spent 3 decades in mediocrity. Saban was the GOAT, but I think it was more about him than Alabama. And that's the thing we were talking about yesterday is it will be interesting to see where Alabama goes from here and then how that success translates forward. I don't think you're going to see a run of 2, 3 titles, 3 out of the next 5, 3 out of the next 7. I don't think it's going to happen. That doesn't mean that they're going to be garbage either. It's just it's very interesting to it's going to be fun to watch and see how that looks moving forward. And as we get ready to go to break, ESPN made Pat McAfee dump Aaron Rodgers yesterday as a guest for the rest of football season, and now they just took his show off earlier today after Bill Belichick retired. And you're talking about a guy who's got a football show. Saban and Belichick retire, and his show is taken off. It looks like the, quote, long knives are out at ESPN for Pat McAfee. We're brought to you by BCI. Go to BCIPeople.com. Protect your infrastructure and your data today. Go to BCIPeople.com to learn more today. 601-427-4185. We will have Drew DeArmond coming up in 20 minutes.
Association.
This is the home of the Chuck Oliver Show every weekday from 10 till noon on Mississippi's live and local sports authority. And where? We're back to Jake Quiverly with the afternoon drive on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by Martin's Downtown. Get down and have a beverage. Michelob Ultra, Bud Light. Please drink responsibly. Southern Beverage endorsed, and, of course, grab their products as well. Great food. Music on the weekends at Martin's. Go to martinsdowntownjxn.com for more information. Get the playoffs this weekend and more at Martin's Downtown. We'll have Drew DeArmond coming up in the next segment. We'll talk Alabama coaching search, what's going on with Alabama. You can text us 601-885-3776. I got to get into this story, Beaver. Threw in front of me that I had not seen. ESPN operated 13-year Emmy scheme using fake names to get awards for top talent. Isn't that their Emmy scheme? So this is for Emmys or ESPYs? Emmys. Okay. So we'll get into that. What do you think about Pat McAfee being pulled off the air today?
Well, is it just why was that connected to Saban and Belichick?
Well, just indirectly. Belichick retires yesterday. This is courtesy of Travis and Outkick, that he was off the air today. They did not put his show on. But just Belichick today, Saban yesterday, and the big, first off, who would have ever thought that those two would have retired within 24 hours of each other? Isn't that weird? It's almost like it was planned.
Well, for the second day in a row, let's go back yesterday, because Possum Nick Joe, remember he said he broke the Saban stuff, because he's the one that said Saban bought a house wherever he said he bought a house, and he's going to go fishing with Belichick. So that was also a Possum Neck Joe. He put Belichick in that same sentence. So did he call both of these things?
I think he kind of did. Here's what's interesting about that. Is Joe really in Possum Neck? And his name really Joe? Or is he kind of somehow tied to these two that we don't know about?
I mean, look, if ESPN is given fake names, this person might be too. Maybe it's not Joe. Because what ESPN did is they took the initials of their certain hosts and used them. So I know Possum Neck Joe isn't his government name, but let's just say it was PJ. Then that's a what do you like to say? How do you say that word? Pseudo, as you say.
Yeah.
Which in the real world it's pseudonym.
But in my world it's
Pseudo. So Joe, who are you really?
Is his name maybe Patrick Jenkins or something like that? Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison has declared for the NFL draft. So who is the best coach in college football now? That whole list is going to change, right? I mean, it gets kind of thrown upside down. Who is it, Beeb? Is it Kirby Smart? Is it Jim Harbaugh? Well, Jim Harbaugh hasn't left college football yet. Is it Brian Kelly, Caleb DeBoer, Dabo Swint? No, it ain't Dabo. Ryan Day, Steve Sarkisian, Mike Norvell, Lane Kiffin. Who's the best coach in football? Is it Smart? I think it has to be Smart. Sparky. Check your story. Belichick press conference was at 11. They showed the press conference, and then McAfee's show was on after that. Hey, I'm just reporting what's out there on X. That's all I'm reporting. From a reputable news source. That's all. That's all. All right. Moving forward, shall we? Where did that? There it is. So, Charlie Baker, the astute NCAA president, does not, quote, regret his unusual decision to alert the Big Ten to the Michigan sign-stealing inquiry and believes it indirectly helped legitimize the Wolverines' title. Quote, no one believes at this point that Michigan didn't win the national title fair and square. So for the NCAA president to say that, all of you wishing that Michigan gets their title taken away, I don't know that that's going to happen. All right, Beaver, your childhood is over. You want me to tell you why I know? Listen to these lists of coaches that are gone now. David Shaw, who coached at Stanford, is no longer coaching. Chris Peterson, Boise State, gone. Bill Snyder, Kansas State, gone. Les Miles, gone. Frank Beamer, gone. Lloyd Carr, gone. Spurrier, gone. Bob Stoops, gone. Coach O, gone. Jimbo, out. Tressel, done. Urban, gone. Carroll, done. And Saban. Think about how much college football has changed over the last 10 to 15 years. All those names, if you're 40 and up, are no longer coaching. And interesting deal here. I don't know if you follow NFL memes on X. So remember yesterday you were railing on Chicago for sticking with Matt Eberflus? Well, think about this. Belichick is available. Pete Carroll's available. What's his face from Tennessee is available. And Jim Harbaugh is available, and they stay with Eberflus. That is an amazing, amazing deal. And three of Nick Saban's final four losses at Alabama happened on the last play of the game. Lost to Tennessee last year, 52-49. Lost to LSU, 32-31. And then Michigan, and that was in overtime, by the way. And then Michigan, 27-20 in overtime. And a stat of the day from Adam Schefter, under Nick Saban, Alabama had more players drafted in the first round, 44, than it had losses at 29. They had 44 guys and drafted and only 29 losses. 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. So who's going to be Dan Lanning out, Beef? Who's going to be the next coach? Is Mike Norvell really a candidate? His name's been floated out there a lot. Or is it Lane Kiffin? Or is it Steve Sarkisian? Or is it somebody else? And I haven't seen a ton of attrition so far at Alabama. Greg McElroy gives 0% chance for Dabo Swinney or Lane Kiffin to land the Alabama job. He says 0% chance. Now, we'll talk with Drew DeArmond in the next segment. He is dialed in as anybody in that Alabama program. Harrison off to the NFL. Quinn Ewers has announced officially he will return to Texas next year. And let's see here. Looking through this 30-day transfer window notes, their third string is better than some Power 5 starters. Pete Nakos expects Alabama to at least potentially get rated. Let's go to Gator Matt. Matt, happy Thursday.
I don't know what direction this thing's going to go in. I really don't. But Dan Lanning, I mean, the guy coached a year and a half. Do you really think he's ready for that Alabama job? And the love affair with Mike Norvell, Jake, Florida State could not afford to buy him out. That's why he's still there. People forget these things. But no, not Gator Matt. I remember it all. You know it. They wanted to get rid of him. And he got lucky on a quarterback. And then he got lucky on some transfers because nobody really thought these guys were going to be that good. I think he's extremely over. I mean, do you agree?
I don't know that he's extremely.
Or are you just in love with Norvell all of a sudden?
No.
I mean, good Lord.
I'm not in love with him. I think he's a good look. I think he has done a good job over the last 18 months with the transfer portal. And you're right. He made some good decisions on some players. They were really good before Jordan Travis got hurt. He wouldn't be my first choice.
And they were horrible before Jordan Travis.
Yeah, they weren't that good. They weren't. You're right.
No, they wanted to run him out, but they had already paid off. They were still paying Willie Taggart, and they don't want to pay this loser. So they got lucky. But whatever. Alabama wants them, take them.
I don't know that he's going to be the guy.
Alabama's good. And I'm not sure this DeBoer guy's really. I mean, is that who you want? I guess he's more of a proven. But then again, then you're looking at who's the guy that was just at Auburn they ran out. You know, the guy from Boise State. Are you going to have the same situation that you had with that guy? I mean, I don't know. I think you got to go. People don't want to hear this. I think you go get Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly.
Now, I know that half your audience just choked on the corn dogs they're eating when I said that. But I think you go get Brian Kelly because I think the guy, as much as I hate to admit it, he's a proven winner. He has a system that works, and he has gotten more familiar with the SEC. And LSU fans, you don't want to hear this, but Alabama's a better job, and it's set up to win right now. LSU's not winning anything for the next 2 or 3 years. Now, he's building something they could, but he could go to LSU and win next year a national title, and I think it could be sustainable because he's, 10 years younger than Saban. I think that's who you get. You don't get him, then you go get Kiffin, but even with that guy, I don't know. Talk to you later, my man.
See you, brother. Appreciate it. Good call as always. 601-897-1059. We're brought to you by our friends at Sound Communications, online at soundcomav.com. They've been around since 1955. Let them help you in the state of Mississippi like they have helped others, large and small school sound systems, office equipment, churches, your place of worship, schools, government buildings, medical facilities. Drew DeArmond on Nick Saban and Alabama.
And action!
We got that and a whole lot more around here. It's the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly.
What's the score?
He's got that, along with the hottest sports stories of the day on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by A1 Gear and Auto, your hometown vehicle specialist. 15-plus years of great service down on 49 in Florence. 601-939-1060. Radiators, engine starters, alternators, your heat in your car, you're going to need that next week. You are going to need that next week. Air conditioners, all the stuff on the back ends that will keep you going. Rear ends, rings, pinions, rear differentials. 601-939-1060. We're efforting Drew DeArmond. We'll get him at some point, maybe here in a minute, or later on in the show. Let's see here. St. Louis Vic on the Cowboy Maloney's text line, 601-885-3776. Forgive me, Beeve. Jake, I can see Deion going into Bama, but please believe that Louis Luggage talk would be non-existent. They aren't ready for the show over in Tuscaloosa. So, yeah, I'm not sure about that. We'll see. What's interesting is, the Mike Norvell talk as I'm trying to remember who said this on X this morning. I believe it was Brad Crawford, yeah. So he says, who says no to this? If Mike Norvell goes to Alabama, I could see Deion Sanders going to Florida State. No doubt about it. 100%. And he says, Coach Prime to Florida State if Alabama gets Mike Norvell. Who says no? I don't know that many people would disagree with that. I mean, because there's certain fits for certain guys. And I would think if Norvell is a legitimate candidate and he ends up being the guy, that Sanders could go there. All right, so we've got college football final rankings. Michigan number 1 all the way to the bottom. We'll get to that a little bit later. Alabama coaching candidates and some other opinions from some national guys. Also the 2024 NFL playoff bracket projections from the computers, and then the top 10 all-time NFL coaches where Bill Belichick is placed among some of the NFL scholars. Let's go to Tide Man. Tide Man, happy Thursday.
Yes, good afternoon.
Hey, brother.
Yeah, it's crazy because don't even have time to grieve and mourn because we got a next man up type of thing going here. I wanted to get y'all's thoughts I think Dan Lanning was scared to death. He didn't want to come in and be the guy after the guy, as the saying goes. I'm kind of hoping for Lane Kiffin. I did it 5 years ago. I would not have wanted any part of him, but I think he has really matured. I don't trust people outside of the SEC. Lane Kiffin knows the SEC. He knows the Bama culture. He knows Nick Saban. He also knows the new game with the NIL and the transfer portal. He knows how to work that. And I think he's just cocky enough to not worry about being the guy after the guy. But then I heard you guys saying that Greg McElroy said that there was no way that it would be Kiffin. So I certainly trust Greg McElroy as much as anybody out there. So I guess maybe Kiffin is not going to be the guy. I don't know. That's just my take on it. There's like I was talking to Beaver, there's nobody. It's going to be a disappointment whoever you hire, because as Beaver said, you can't replace the GOAT. You just can't do it. But I think Kiffin would just make sense to me from a cultural standpoint. Young enough, great recruiter, doing what he's doing at Ole Miss, knows the SEC, knows Saban, knows the Bama standard, knows the expectations, cocky enough to come in there with the swagger and not be intimidated to follow the GOAT. That's my 2 cents on it. I want to get y'all's thoughts on it. But one last thing, I'm just full of gratitude for everything Nick Saban did for us. It's the greatest dynasty in the history of sports, next to Michael Jordan, what he did. Roll Tide. Y'all have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Tide, man. Roll Tide. Yeah, look, I can't imagine. You may get one guy, a couple that are aggravated with Nick Saban. I think most people are going to be very complimentary, very appreciative of what is going on with Nick Saban. Okay,
so Drew DeArmond has called us back. But since we're so close to the next commercial break, he's going to hold for us. Let's go to break early now and come back with Drew.
You got it. Let's take a timeout. We're brought to you by Maristar Casino. Get out and play. You can play college basketball, the NBA, the NFL playoffs, and more. 4 great restaurants at Maristar and the Bottleneck this weekend. Drew DeArmond on your radio. Rated today.
Turning to sports.
With Jake Wimberly on the afternoon drive.
One of the last pure pleasures I have left in my life.
Yeah, maybe you ought to get a life first, okay? On ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by Burgers Blues Barbecue. Flowood, now open. Brand new location in Flowood. Moving and shaking. You can get out to Flowood. Also Madison and Brandon. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. They got you covered all three meals of the day. Also catering. Ask about catering and the food truck. Check out their website. Also Facebook.com/Burgers Blues Barbecue. Drew DeArmond, Drew D, 977 ESPN in the mornings. Host of Talking Ball, Huntsville, Alabama, 7 to 9. He's got the morning drive. TinerInsider.com. He is as connected as anybody inside the Alabama program in the SEC. Also, 977ESPN.com. Drew, thank you so much for taking some time. I know that you may not have even slept last night. How are you?
Well, I managed to get 2.5 to 3 hours, Jake, which I think was a victory. I know I was texting with you yesterday. I appreciate you taking the time to, have me on the show. I'll just say this. I had to plug the phone up again. So I apologize for that, for the delay. But needless to say, I haven't had to cover a coaching search at Alabama football-wise since I got in the business 10 years ago. And now I remember when I was outside the business and how much I hated a football coaching search, and I still do. But it is what it is.
Well, let me ask you this. Were you guys tipped off before you? I mean, yesterday, we took a break, and I got a text that said, check Twitter now. And Beaver did, my producer, and then, of course, it just hit us right on the air, and it was extremely weird and wow. You knew it was coming at some point, but just kind of to have to talk about it in real time, it was very, very odd, just very nostalgic. Did you guys know about this, or were you guys surprised?
Here's what I was told yesterday. I got a text about 2 o'clock from one of my best sources. He told me an assistant coach was leaving to go to Georgia, had I heard about it? And I said no. And I said, but I can't believe that would happen. I figure he was up for a promotion. He'd been heavily involved in recruiting, And I just was like, that wouldn't be good at all. And then, I as we were talking, Bo Davis went to LSU, and then I told the source, I said, I'm not surprised he didn't hire Bo. And he said, well, he tried, but they're using his age against him. They're wondering if he's going to retire in 1 or 2 years. And Saban was having trouble retaining assistants, hiring who he wanted because of his age. NIL, the transfer portal, he had adapted to that, but it's still an ongoing situation. As you know, it's open-ended. We've talked to you about that on our show with what Ole Miss and Mississippi State are doing, especially the Rebels. So there's just absolutely no guardrails on it. And I think, as Coach Saban told Reese Davis, Chris Lowe today, it's a lot harder to do now when he's 72 than it was when he was 62. And I think I was told yesterday around 2 o'clock he was growing frustrated with not being able to fill out his staff. He was frustrated with how recruiting ended, and I know that sounds absurd because they finished number 2, but he wasn't happy that they only had 8 scholarship offensive linemen for spring, that McLaughlin transferred, and that, they didn't sign some offensive tackles that he would have liked to have signed out of the high school ranks. I just think overall just being tired, and it's such a hard job to stay so fully involved, not take a CEO role, and run the organization the way he wants to. And I just think he felt like, it wasn't. And I think I'll just say this on your show: the powers that be, the board of trustees, the athletic director, they were on alert. They knew this could happen. They weren't 100% sure it would, but I think he just grew tired. You probably read what was said today that he was still working 30 minutes before he decided to retire. He interviewed a wide receivers coach candidate and then just said, I'm done, I'm retiring. And I'll just tell you, I knew about the 4 o'clock meeting, but they have it every year. The first thing we were told is that it was just going to be to set the agenda, the off-season program in spring, just like they do every year under him, and that he wasn't going to retire. Then he walked into the room and told the team he was retiring. The coaches and the players had no idea. So to say it was a little surprising yesterday, Jake, I would say yes.
Drew DeArmond on your radio talking Nick Saban, Alabama, out at Alabama. And, of course, now a coaching search is underway. We'll get to that in just a bit. So, Drew, I don't even know how you quantify. You look at the numbers for Nick Saban. You look at the national championships, the SEC titles, just the way that he transformed this league, the way he transformed the University of Alabama. And look, that was hard to do to begin with all the history and everything that goes with the Crimson Tide. But just in a couple minutes before we talk coaching search, just to kind of put your arms around what he has meant to Tuscaloosa and the university.
Well, I'll equate it like this. When I was a kid, Jake, I was a kid of the 80s and the 90s. Most people thought Notre Dame was the most tradition-rich program in college football history. They won a national championship when I was in middle school in 1988. They nearly won it again in 93 when I was about to graduate high school. Since that time, Notre Dame's only come close twice, and Alabama smashed them both times. And when you look at what Nick Saban has done with 4 Heisman Trophy winners, 6 national championships, and he could have won 10 very easily, Jake, in 17 years, what he's done is he has established Alabama football as the greatest program historically in history, and it's not close. I mean, Georgia's had a great run lately. Clemson had moments in the sun. But I'm just talking about when you stack the history together from the 1920s Rose Bowls all the way to now, it's like I told somebody yesterday, he took a sledgehammer and smashed Notre Dame. Okay? Notre Dame, it's creeping up to 40 years since they've won a national championship. He won 6 at Alabama and almost won 10. To me, what he did historically is he had the greatest run in history for a 17-year period. And because of what he did, when you stack it with Coach Bryant, when you stack it with Gene Stallings, Coach Wade, Coach Thomas, Alabama football is the greatest program in history, and I don't think it's close because I just think when you look at the national championships they've won and then they've almost won, nobody compares to what Alabama has done historically now, and a lot of that's because of Nick Saban and all these coaches making, $11, $12 million a year, $10 million a year. Your lowest paid coach in the SEC making $3 to $4 million. you can all thank Nick Saban, and you can also thank him for the SEC Network because, as you said, he revolutionized the game.
I don't think anybody's going to disagree with anything that you just said. Drew DeArmond talking Nick Saban, Thursday edition of the program. All right, so Dan Lanning has taken his name out of the hat. And, of course, you hear Mike Norvell today. You hear Lane Kiffin. You hear Kalen DeBoer, Washington, Steve Sarkisian. Any guesses on a short list? Is that the short list? Is there somebody we're not thinking of? You look at Greg Byrne. He said 72-hour window. And I'm paraphrasing. We're going to button this thing up or feel like they'll have it buttoned up. I saw John Talty put that out there on X. Your thoughts on who it might be?
Well, I'll just say this. I had a list of my own. I was hearing a lot of vibes, strong ones with Dan Lanning yesterday, and I thought strongly it might be him. It turned out it was not. And you're never right in this deal all the time. Of course, it's almost like chasing ghosts. But I'll just give you a list of of 4 guys, and I don't think it'll get off of that list. I think Dan Lanning was on that list. He's now out. You just said that, Jake. But I think the other 3 on that list, D'Amico Ryans, even though the timeline doesn't really fit, Steve Sarkisian, and Kalen DeBoer. I don't think it comes off of those. I don't think it's going to be Mike Norvell, no disrespect. I think he's done a great job at Florida State. Because I think if it was Mike Norvell, it would already be done because FSU, his buyout is $4 million. You know the turmoil they're having with the ACC. I think he would jump at the chance to come to Alabama. But Steve Sarkisian, he's in talks to get an extension with Texas. That could get a little sticky. His wife loves Austin, so there's no guarantees there. But I really think when you look at it, D'Amico is a Bama guy. I know he's just in his first year as an NFL head coach. And, again, the timelines are really iffy because of the playoffs and the portal being open. But I really think, based on what I've heard, that those were the 4 guys that I believe were strongly under consideration. Lanning never got offered the job. So, to me, it's going to come from one of those 3 with Kalen DeBoer, Steve Sarkisian, and D'Amico Ryans. And I think Alabama will have a head coach by tomorrow.
And so if what you're saying is the gospel, which typically you're on the money when it comes to Alabama and the SEC, Ole Miss fans should be ecstatic. It's not likely Lane Kiffin.
I don't think so. I very seriously doubt it's Lane Kiffin. I've never thought it would be. I'll just say this. Lane's done a great job at Ole Miss. There's no question about that. He's had 2 10-plus win seasons, a school record 11 wins this year. But I'll also say his tenure at Alabama didn't end well with Nick Saban. And Nick Saban is still going to be around the building. He's still going to have his office. He's still going to be involved, definitely, with keeping this roster together. I think that Nick Saban has a better relationship with Sark than he does Kiffin. I know Kiffin respects him. Kiffin always pays homage to him. But I'll just say this. During a 17-year run, Lane Kiffin is the only assistant coach that didn't finish a season.
Wow, that is
not
strong.
Not all of that was because he had taken another job at FAU, okay? And then all I'll say is when he removed Lane Kiffin after the Washington win in 2016, who took over as OC?
Yeah, it was Sark.
Steve Sarkisian. So I just don't think – I know Lane impressed some people when he was in Tuscaloosa, but I don't think he impressed enough people. And I'll just say this, too. Lane Kiffin would jump at the chance to go to Tuscaloosa. That's why he didn't go to Auburn last year, in my opinion. But I just don't think he's going to get this job. I think he wants the job. I think if he wanted it, it would have already been done. But I just don't think he's going to be the Alabama coach. I've never thought he was going to. People that I trust don't think so. And I just think overall, when it comes down to it, the 3 guys I mentioned, Kalen DeBoer, Steve Sarkisian, D'Amico Ryans, I think it's going to come from those 3 now that Dan Lanning is officially out.
Really, really good stuff. Drew DeArmond on your radio. Drew D, 977 ESPN, TiderInsider.com, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., 977ESPN.com. Drew, always appreciate your time. Good stuff as always. Look, I appreciate you on a tight window. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Jacob. Thanks for hanging with me, man. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Drew DeArmond on your radio talking Nick Saban, what he means or will mean and continues to mean and will in the future to college football in Alabama. D'Amico Ryan, heard that name this morning too. Houston Texans head football coach, Alabama guy. Kalen DeBoer, Washington head football coach. Steve Sarkisian, Texas football coach. Out of those three, who's it going to be, Beef? You have your hashtag RTR shirt on. Is it going to be D'Amico? Is he going to leave the NFL to come back to his alma mater? DeBoer? And will he bring Will Rogers to Alabama? Or will Sark bring Manning, Arch Manning, to Tuscaloosa? Because all of that is possible. Remember, if DeBoer or Sark leave, the transfer portal opens for 30 days at those programs. You Mississippi State fans would be mad as, I would never have seen you as mad as if Will Rogers and Kalen DeBoer show up in Tuscaloosa. Or Arch Manning and Steve Sarkisian. Ole Miss fans wouldn't be happy either. Back in a bit.
The number you have reached.
Archegos, Pickens, Jackson. From college football to the NFL to high school football. 365 days a year. Hear it all on Jackson Sports Authority. Live and local at 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com. Now let's get back to the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly.
Appreciate Drew DeArmond jumping in on a busy Thursday. We are brought to you by Mississippi Legends Grill, where everyone knows your name. Bingo trivia, kids eat free on Thursday, which is today. Take your kids, feed them well at Mississippi Legends Grill, and do that today. We'll have Rafael Esparza, mybookie.ag. By the way, go to facebook.com/Mississippi Legends Grill. Get the lunch special of the day. Catfish Friday, fried chicken Friday tomorrow. Esparza coming up at 4:30. Michael Bratton coming up at 5:15, that SEC podcast. All right, so Drew, who is as tied in with anybody over there with that program, he says, hey, look, it's not going to be Lane Kiffin. Kiffin is going to stay at Ole Miss. Kiffin wants the job, but he's not going to get the job. So that should make, if it's not Kiffin, then let's just assume it's not. I mean, Greg McElroy said 0% chance. Not going to be Kiffin. And if trying to call Beaver just walked out, he'll be back in just a second. He's multitasking here has been for the last 10 minutes. So taking care of some other stuff in here. He says D'Amico Ryan, Kalen DeBoer, or Steve Sarkisian. I am going to take a guess that it's going to be Kalen DeBoer. I don't know. Steve Sarkisian's got a great thing going in Texas. I don't know that D'Amico Ryan is look, D'Amico Ryan, he's an Alabama guy. He's done a wonderful job with the Houston Texans. Does he want to leave the NFL that quickly? And with, the playoffs and the window and, the transfer portal, does it line up for him? I think it's going to be DeBoer, personally. I think that's who it's going to be. You look at a guy who is the hottest, one of the hottest names in football right now. This is a guy that is 25-3 at Washington. They just played for a national championship. You look at his coaching career, Sioux Falls, Iowa. He was Washington Washington high school assistant. And then this is all back in the 80s and 90s, the 90s. Then Southern Illinois OC wide receiver coach. I mean, he's made the climb very similar to a lot of these guys like Urban Meyer, Nick Saban. He has made that climb. He's 104-12. As a head football coach. Now, NAIA, he won 3 NAIA championships, 2006, 8 and 9, 4 GPAC championships, 2006 to 9, and a Pac-12 championship this past year, and their last year. So what's interesting about this is Jalen Milroe. Look, it doesn't matter if it's D'Amico Ryans, Kalen DeBoer, especially if it's DeBoer and Steve Sarkisian. Milroe will not be the starting quarterback in Alabama. And there's already rumblings that he's going to hit the portal. So what happens? I think because of the way the transfer portal, and you can laugh at me all you want, but I am telling you on the 11th day of January, if it's Steve Sarkisian, and I don't think it's going to be, Arch Manning will be in Tuscaloosa. Because remember, and you may say, how? Well, the transfer portal, when a coach leaves, the transfer portal window opens just like it is at Alabama for 30 days. So those guys have an opportunity to get out of there. If it's Steve Sarkisian, it's going to be Arch Manning. And you can laugh at this all you want. If it's Kalen DeBoer, it's going to be Will Rogers. Because that's who he wanted at Washington. Will Rogers will come back this way. Not everybody telling me this, but this is what I feel. 601-885-3776. If you're trying to call Beef, we'll be back here in just a second. Sorry about that. I can't do everything. So we'll have Rafael Esparza at 4:30, Michael Bratton coming up at 5:15. We've got some stuff on the NFL to get into on Bill Belichick and what he means to the NFL. What maybe next is there going to be a next for him as we move along. Let me check the and Drew says he thinks it's going to be by tomorrow afternoon. He thinks Alabama will have a coach, by tomorrow. Miko on the Cowboy Maloney's text line. What do you think Bama would have their guy already? I'm sure they weren't caught off guard by this. Well, it depends on, and we'll never really know this. I mean, what Drew was saying is, hey, look, Saban was working up until 30 minutes, and then he just went in there and did it. And I could see that happening. I am sure, though, Greg Byrne has a short list and had a short list. And, maybe they were preparing for this but didn't know when it was going to happen. Tiger David. Brian Kelly is the best coach in the country. You could make a case for that. Brian Kelly's really good. There's no doubt about it. Really, really, really good. I just don't know that Brian Kelly would want to follow Nick Saban either. Again, you're going to have a guy that doesn't have a whole lot to lose and doesn't, and you take a guy like Kalen DeBoer at Washington, he's climbed this ladder all the way. He'd be a guy that would probably take it and be like, look, man, I have worked from the bottom and I am, quote, here. Brian Kelly worked for the bottom, went to Notre Dame, went to LSU, has won. I don't know that he wants to make that move over that way. Real unnamed texter. Wow, that Saban timeline crazy. Makes sense, though. PT for MSU says Norvell from Florida State. Well, he's a hot name today, but courtesy of Drew and Tighter Insider, it's not going to be him. If it was going to be him, it would have already been him. Unnamed texter, you telling us that Will Rogers could be the quarterback at Alabama? That's exactly what I'm telling you. Could. I mean, just because you look at, it's not going to be Jalen Milroe, especially if it's Kalen DeBoer or Steve Sarkisian, who run high-end complex passing schemes. It's not going to be him. Bama fan, there's no way Saban and Greg Byrne did not have a plan in place. Saban's to organize for that. And that's probably true. Again, we don't really know. We hear rumors of the timeline and what happened. I would have to think that Nick Saban, as much as he loves the University of Alabama, and the fact that, he's been there so long that he doesn't want to see this thing fall apart. He wants it to continue. He's going to be there working, still have an office. He's going to be highly involved in, trying to keep this class together and move things forward for the next guy. I would have to assume that he did probably let Greg Byrne know that, hey, at some point, hey, this could be it, or, I'm on this timeline. You may want to, let's start preparing for the end. The real unnamed texter, are Alabama fans rooting for the Browns Saturday so D'Amico takes the job? Very well could, right? And look, I think D'Amico Ryan will be fantastic. Hot name in the NFL, really good football coach, has done a heck of a job with the Houston Texans. He's an Alabama guy. He kind of checks every box, except for the fact that he's in the NFL and the timeline and the windows. I mean, if Houston wins this weekend, they're off to the next round. They very well could. I mean, does Alabama wait? And I don't know that Alabama can wait. And you can't fault D'Amico Ryan for, and if you're still trying to call Beavis still out of here, it is just you and I. It is just you and I right now. And he'll be back. Maybe he's not coming back. Maybe Beaver is off to Ohio State for that tryout, for the walk-on. But he will be back in a minute, and we'll get your calls. I just am on the other side of the glass and can't answer that phone over there. So, nope, he didn't quit. No, but oh, come on. Come on. Beav is back. We were taking bets on that you left maybe to go be with Nick Saban. 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. You can always call 601-897-1059. Yeah, it's going to be one of those three, I think. And look, this is all speculation based on, stuff that you get from sports writers and people that are closer to those programs. But it could be Brian Kelly. I doubt it. I mean, Lane Kiffin may be the guy. I don't know. I doubt it. There's a lot of pushback on that from a lot of Alabama people. Trudy Armin's one. Greg McElroy's another, and we've seen some others saying, no, it's not going to be Lane Kiffin. Which for Ole Miss, that's a win if it's not Lane Kiffin, especially with the way they've worked in the transfer portal, and you keep your head coach. Let's go to DJ. DJ, welcome in.
Hey, Jake, we always shoot each other straight, but let's look at the Alabama job. In the height of Saban, he won 4 out of 6 titles, okay? One of the greatest runs in football. In Saban's last 6 years with NIL and portal, by Saban standards, he struggled, okay, by Saban standards. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't call it a struggle. I would say that he took a step. I mean, to win titles like that is just very hard. It became more difficult for him. Let me say that.
Well, 1 out of 6 in his last 6 years, and in his height. But so let me ask you this: is it really a good job? Are you old enough to? You may not be old enough to remember the decade after the Bear. Are you old enough to remember?
I mean, I was probably 10 or 11. I really dialed in the early 90s.
It was absolutely miserable. And then, of course, I'm old enough to remember right after Woody, same thing. It's just hard following a legend. And let's look at the candidates. If you're Sarkisian, let's be honest, okay? And I'm going to throw it out there. Ohio State cannot compete with Michigan money. Alabama cannot compete with Texas money. Will you agree with that?
Yes.
It's a fact. Ohio State, we're trying to nickel and dime our way. And the thing is, Michigan has endowments that one or two people can throw more money than 100,000 of us Ohio State fans can come up with. Same thing with Texas. So why would Sark leave?
Well, it's a great question. And it's a great place to be. And a lot of people don't believe that. But, Texas is – you just see what he's done in 2 years. He got him to the playoff.
Right. And let's go to Kiffin. Okay. A lot of people blame Kiffin for losing that national championship because he got fired right before the national championship game. Now, I don't know if that's fair or not. But to change coordinators within a few days after the championship game, I don't know how they would I agree. I don't think Kiffin has a chance at the job. Do you?
No, I do not.
And the last thing I'm going to say, for all of those people that think Saban, and I've read it, now I got one more thing to throw at you, okay, and you may not want to touch that one. Those people that think Saban had a plan in place, do they not remember how high and dry he left the Miami Dolphins? How many times did he deny that he was taking the Alabama job? Okay?
Well, he did a lot. A lot of coaches do that.
Well, and the last thing, and you may not want to touch this one, but, Twitter's a vile place. Do you agree with that, or can be?
Yes.
There's a lot of people saying D'Amico Ryans will not be the Alabama coach, and you know where I'm headed with that, right?
Yeah, but I don't know that I want to. Not because I don't want to address it. I just don't think. Yeah.
I don't want to entertain that either because hopefully in 2024 we're past that. But there's a lot of people on Twitter that are saying that that's the reason he won't get a fair shake at the job. And I would like to think in 2024 we're past that because D'Amico Ryans is one of the best coaches, young coaches in the NFL. But anyway, Jake, love the show, man.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Got to take a time out, pass the break, back in a bit.
MS.
It's time to get
Back in the game
with Jake Wimberly and the Afternoon Drive.
That's entertainment.
On the station that specializes in the Mississippi sports you love.
Now we're talking.
Live and local on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Brought to you by Maristar Casino, and we're brought to you by Gutter Masters, custom gutter solutions from our team at Gutter Masters. You're about to get a lot of rain tomorrow. If you don't have gutters, well, you can't get them between now and tomorrow, but you can get them next week. 601-503-7755, guttermastersllc.com. Get protected today. And, of course, facebook.com/guttermasters. All right, listen here. Lance on the Cowboy Maloney's text line. Lane Kiffin just makes more sense if you're trying to keep the 4- and 5-star recruits that are already leaving. Well, it does make sense from that aspect. It's just, from what Drew was saying when he was on and what others have said that are around that program is, Kiffin just did not leave on good terms at Alabama. And, they may look past all that. They may look past it. J-Rock, Alabama not wanting Kiffin, that makes no sense. What could possibly be the reason? Well, again, remember, and we forget this, it's Greg Byrne, and then there's a Board of Regents as well. And then there's Nick Saban. Nick Saban is going to have a say in this, quietly, for sure. And nobody really knows how that relationship is between, Kiffin clowns, and he talks, and he's highly complimentary. But remember, he was left on basically a tarmac. Or left, they took off without him. It ended poorly for him over there. Now, obviously, he rebounded and got the FAU job and at Ole Miss, and everything else is history. Do you think it would be? Are we missing on Lane Kiffin here? Could it really be Lane Kiffin?
It could be, but DeArmond, who's right there, not that they would give everything away, but. Or not that, Alabama, they as in Alabama, would give him everything, all the information. But he's right there. He's in the state. I tend to believe him because he seemed really adamant when he said no on Kiffin. He had conviction behind that.
He did. And not that Drew is Greg McElroy, but Greg McElroy, very adamant as well. It's not Kiffin. It's not going to be Kiffin. Zero chance. So, you get it from a quarterback, you get it from a guy that works insider, tighter insider, which is very equivalent to your Genes pages or your Rebel Ole Miss Spirits. It may not be Kiffin. Miko, if Bama hires DeBoer, does that change the commitment of Daniel Hill that will, with the likelihood Dylan Johnson follows him? Anything's possible, right, in this transfer portal world? You could see Washington get gutted. Bama guys leave. That portal window is open. Anything's possible. Bama fan. This guy's an idiot. There's a plan in place. They're just working on the contract and the other things before announcement. Attorneys have to look at all the contract stuff. Takes a few days. I'm betting tomorrow there will be an announcement. No, Drew said tomorrow's going to be the day. He feels like it's going to be tomorrow. Monkeys Riding Dogs. Compare Kalen DeBoer and Nick Saban's winning percentage. Dubs up. And Possum Neck Joe. Hey, DJ. Go try to break the Guinness Book of World Record for holding your breath underwater. 24 minutes, 37 seconds. D. Manning. State fans chiming in, laughing. And the real Eric. Kiffin got left on the tarmac by USC, not Alabama. That is true. I forget about that. But didn't he get left? Didn't they leave him down at the Superdome or something? Or maybe I'm making this up in my head. 601-897-1059. Rafael Esparza will join us in the next segment. We'll talk NFL playoffs, take a break from Saban for a bit. If you look at David Cobb, CBSSports.com, Dan Lanning, of course, decides to stay at Oregon. And then you get the normal guys, what Drew was talking about. You get DeBoer, Sarkisian, D'Amico Ryans. I don't know. What are they going to do, Beef? Call your shot.
I feel like if this is the list we're down to.
If it is, in fact, the list.
If it is, in fact, the list. But this is the list you're giving me. This has been the list you've been really saying for the past hour and 24 minutes here. So if we're going Ryans and DeBoer is the names I keep hearing the most here. Out of those two, I feel like it's more likely DeBoer, simply college coach staying in college, over an NFL head coach who just got there, who is having a lot of success already. I mean, turning around the Texans, and with C.J. Stroud having a lot of success too, go hand in hand. I think a college coach more likely to stay in the college ranks. I'm going to go DeBoer out of those two.
Well, yeah, because the window just doesn't fit. Now, if D'Amico Ryans and Houston were not in the playoffs, it may make sense. But because they're in the playoffs, and you go look over here, I mean, the Texans are a 2-point dog at home, but I think they're going to beat Cleveland. What do you think? I think they'll beat Cleveland. They got better quarterback play with Stroud. They seem to be more buttoned up. And so that moves them to the next week. They can't wait that long. Remember, the portal's open. So if you're sitting there with no coach, Saban can only say so much as a, quote, advisor now. Guys just start rolling out. Because I can promise you, for about 24 hours now, every coach in America is trying to poach that roster. They are trying. Hey, we're brought to you, my friends, at Mac Hike in Madison, Gluckstadt. And, of course, get that great Mac Hike feeling in Madison, Gluckstadt. Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and Chevy. New and used inventory available. Make sure to check them out, MacHikeMadison.com. CDJR and Chevy, new and used, on-site and online at MacHikeMadison.com. Get that great Mac Hike feeling. Rafael Esparza coming up.
Ladies and gentlemen,
the time has come to go
Back to the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly. With the hottest sports stories of the day.
for one of those moments that only happens
right here.
On ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Brought to you by the MT Insurance Group. Shop a quote for auto, home, or business in 2024. Call Matt today, 601-594-3540. That's 601-594-3540. The MT Insurance Group here in Central Mississippi. Rafael Esparza, mybookie.ag. Get in and play today. All right, Esparza. So Pete Carroll is gone. Nick Saban's gone. Bill Belichick is gone. Are you gone?
No, I just I was getting ready to put my notice in, and then they re-upped my antes and stuff like that, and gave my wife another Black Noir Amazon card, so we're good.
Very good. All right. Do you have any thoughts on Nick Saban retiring and who the next guy may be? And what does this mean for Alabama moving forward, in your mind?
I think it's going to be a little bit of a bump on the road for them. I think it all depends on who they get. But Alabama is always going to be Alabama. They have the money, they have the facility, they have all the amenities to bring people in. I think Kalen DeBoer, with his work ethic, and I heard he was a heck of a recruiter. He's one of those, get me into someone's living room and I'll close the deal. Type of person. I think that could be a very good fit for Alabama as a head coach. He's our favorite right now for the coaching favorite. But nothing really shocked me
the last 2 days, let's see, 36 hours. With Pete Carroll, I heard he lost a younger crowd, the younger players in the locker room. They just weren't listening, so that didn't shock me. Belichick, just the way they've been playing. I mean, 4-13. Enough said there. And I just heard Nick Saban. I think it's the whine and grind. And he said it today. Between all the stuff you have to do now these days, between the transfer portal and losing coaches every year and doing a whole interview and stuff like that, I think it was just beating him down. I don't think he left for a certain reason, even though I did hear health, not his health, but some health, maybe a family health last night that was from a credible source. He said it today. It wasn't. But none of the three coaches that we're talking about today, if you kind of sit back and look back, I just think their names are more shocking, not the situation and how they did it.
Rafael Esparza, mybookie.ag. Get in and play today. All right, so DeMeco Ryans is one of those guys on that list. He's got a playoff game this weekend. Houston hosting Cleveland. They are a 2-point dog at home. 44.5 is what I'm looking at as the total. This is a 3:30 kick. You like the Browns and this magic run they're on, or you like DeMeco Ryans' team?
Even though I've been making fun of Houston and because C.J. Stroud, an Ohio State quarterback, I still don't think they can do anything. Houston's only played 3 teams that are actually in the playoffs this year. 3 teams, and one of them was Pittsburgh, one of them was Tampa Bay. So it's not like they played the KC, some elite number 1 seed, Dallas and stuff like that. I'm still not 100% sold. I like Cleveland best defense, even though they got a little bump on the road with an injury today. Still like Cleveland with their defense.
All right, I don't even know why I'm asking you this about this game as a Dolphin fan, because I have love Mike McDaniels, love Miami, love what they're doing. Injuries, just feel like they're missing a step. They've still got ways to go here. On the road, Kansas City, they're a 4.5-point dog, 43.5. The weather's going to be awful, and traditionally, all the way back through Danny Marino, Miami doesn't play well in this situation. Tell me why they will play well, or will they not on Saturday?
Probably not. I mean, there's a show on Peacock. That's what this game is on, called Dr. Death.
And why is this on Peacock, by the way?
I have no idea. But that's a really good show on Peacock. I think after the end of this game, some of those Miami Dolphin fans might be frozen and might need to call Dr. Death to help them out. I think Kansas City wins, not because of the weather. I just think they're so banged up. I think it's going to show, the injuries are going to show their ugly head.
Agreed. All right, Pittsburgh on Sunday at noon travels to Buffalo. Bills are a 10-point favorite in a wild card game. 35.5 is the total. Vegas, you guys obviously think this is going to be a lower scoring game. It probably will be. Buffalo's looks like they're, I don't want to say finding their way at the right time, but any chance Pittsburgh keeps this into the fourth quarter?
I think so. We're going to have probably snow flurries. It's going to be cold. They're going to be really, really windy, so that probably benefits Pittsburgh. I mean, it's going to benefit both teams. Both teams like to run the ball. I just think Pittsburgh, their run game, I'll take the plus 10. Buffalo has not shown me that they're 10-point favorites at all season long. I think Buffalo wins by maybe like 6 points or less. Give me Pittsburgh plus the points.
All right, they're feeling it in Dallas. They feel like this might be the year to make the run to the NFC title game and have a shot. The Packers come in. They're a 7-point dog. 3:30 kick on Sunday. Big D is the location, 50.5. Dallas get it done, or is this another heartbreak day for Dallas?
Could we see one of these NFC East teams lose, and maybe Belichick goes over there? Could we see Dallas or Philly? That could be very interesting to see that one. I like Dallas in this one. I'm just happy that the ugly half a point finally got dropped in this game, because it was 7.5 pretty much all week except until this morning. Most of the 7.5s going back to 7s. I like Dallas. This one could be an ugly blowout. It wouldn't shock me.
All right, we got the Stafford Bowl Sunday night, 7 p.m. Rams at Lions. Lions have done everything just about right. Really done a great job. -3 Detroit at home, total 51.5.
You saw those props I sent out, those wildcard props. The highest scoring game, this one right here, Rams-Detroit, bet the over 51.5. I like the Rams in this one. I always like to take one underdog team on as a wild card. This is my home. I'm going to take the +3. I like the Rams, but I like the over better.
All right, Monday night, Philly, Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts, we don't know how healthy that hand is. Philly is a 3-point favorite on the road, total 43.5.
Yeah, he hasn't thrown a football all week long. That middle finger looked pretty nasty. Tampa Bay with Baker Mayfield, Monday Night Raw wrestling. I don't know what I'm going to be watching this win, but I can't believe I'm going to say this. I think the Eagles could win this game just because I think they're going to be able to run the ball. I like Philly, but I don't like the number. I'm going to take Tampa Bay plus the 3, but I still think Philly wins by like 2 points.
All right, Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick. Does either one of them coach again? Do both coach again? What do you think?
I think Belichick coaches again. I think he really wants that record. It would not shock me if Pete Carroll takes maybe 1 year off. I mean, Pete Carroll's a lot older than people actually really think about, so it wouldn't shock me if he takes a year off. But I think Belichick coaches. I'm saying either Atlanta or one of these NFC East teams that might lose this week. He'll land one of those places.
There's no way Belichick could work for Jerry Jones, is it?
What does Jerry Jones say anytime he has a microphone in front of him? I want another Super Bowl. I think right now he would do anything for a Super Bowl.
I mean, it seems like his ego is too big for him to get that Super Bowl.
True, but I think before he goes sailing, I mean, he ain't getting any younger either. So if he wants to host a trophy, he needs it now. I think he will bend over backwards to get one, and I think getting Belichick. I mean, granted, if Dallas loses, which I don't think, I think the Eagles have a better shot of losing. But that could be very interesting Monday night if the Eagles lose.
All right, we got a lot of this stuff going on. Tell everybody what else is going on and what you're doing this weekend outside of wrestling.
Yeah, we got UFC comes back into action this weekend. We got NFL wildcards, a whole bunch of college basketball. So it's just a great week. NBA, NHL. So it's just a great week. I mean, let's face it, it's all about NFL wildcard players. I'm still trying to figure out Peacock is the Miami Kansas City game, but that's another story. Should be fun. I just think that the Swifties are just going to make Peacock make a ton of money because they're going to want to watch Taylor Swift in Kansas City. So you have to buy a Peacock.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I'll come over. You can use my password. I'll come over.
Very good. Esparza, appreciate you as always. We'll talk Alabama football next week. See you.
Take it easy. Have a great weekend.
See you. Rafael Esparza, mybookie.ag. Get in and play today. We're brought to you by Cowboy Maloney's. Get heat, get air conditioners, all the good stuff. Bedding, appliances, 70 years in the business. Mississippi operated and owned. That is Cowboy Maloney's. 13 locations. CowboyMaloney's.com.
Missouri.
Good afternoon. And welcome back to the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly, where he's talking about anything and everything that's Mississippi sports.
No, great afternoon.
Right here on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online worldwide on thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by Ashley Howie, Crown Lake Realtors, 769-226-3782. Facebook.com/Ashley Howie Realtor if you're looking to buy, sell, or relocate. Appreciate Rafael Esparza. We'll have Michael Bratton, that SEC podcast, at 5:15. All right, text us 601-885-3776 on the Cowboy Maloney's text line. You can always hit us up on X. That's the Clinton Body Shop Twitter feed, at Jake Wim, and also the Malone Roofing caller line. Yeah, X is always weird. Is that what you're laughing at?
Well, you said the X feed, or hit us up on X. And then you said that's the Twitter feed.
Oh.
So we still haven't made it.
Can't get there yet.
But I also need to point out that when you were talking to Raphael, we were barreling towards a full day, one day in a row, without hearing a certain singer's name mentioned on the show. And then you and Esparza just murdered it.
More so him.
Yeah, he started it.
He did. And I haven't mentioned the national champions today, which is good. I told you I'm pivoting away from that now. That's done. You can't live in the past.
One day in a row.
Got to move forward. Bama fan on the Clinton Body Shop Twitter text line. Also, Saban asked the players to wait 72 hours before making any decisions. Yeah, I am sure that probably did happen. And that's why they probably put this on such a tight timeline. To have a guy to come in, try to make the pitch to, hey, look, we need you to stay here Don't jump in the portal, blah, 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 blah. All that stuff. Unnamed texture. Ole Miss basketball had a great bounce-back game last night. Beat Florida 103-85. Vandy is next, 14-1, and ain't bad. No, it's not bad. Big win for Ole Miss. Big win for Mississippi State over Tennessee last night. We hadn't even had a chance to get to that. And both programs, and let me go over here and look real quick. If you go to the updated now SEC men's basketball standings, courtesy of SECsports.com, obviously got a list of 2-0 teams out there in the Auburn, Kentucky, Georgia, Bama, and LSU. Ole Miss sitting at 1-1 with South Carolina, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and then, of course, a lot of 0-2s in Florida's, the Arkansas, the Texas A&M's, Missouri, and Vanderbilt's. And so you look at coming up, we'll get the schedule coming up this weekend. So SEC play really dialing up, and Ole Miss and Mississippi State with big wins last night. Rebel Tiger David, I need someone's Peacock password, please. I'm not paying to watch the Chiefs game. Peacock password, please. Saban to Cowboys. Saban to the Cowboys. Don't you have Peacock? I do not. I am not doing the whole Peacock thing for this. I may go somewhere and watch it. I'm not.
Yeah, there's. I mean, I think it's $4.99. I mean, the $5 to watch one game. That doesn't sound very inviting unless you are a passionate Chiefs or Dolphins fan. And you're a pretty passionate Dolphins fan, but even you're not willing. So
Well, I'm not. I don't have any faith in. I just think there's too much going against Miami this weekend. They're so injured and so beaten up right now, and it's a shame that they are. And they're playing in 2-degree weather at night, which is always kryptonite for the Dolphins. It's always been kryptonite for the Dolphins. Always. I mean, I can remember the playoffs against the Bills with Danny Marino, playoffs against the Jets, playoffs against the Steelers. Anytime it was cold weather, it's kryptonite. Those South Florida guys can't do it. It's weird.
Yeah, I don't see how NBC is really going to... There's going to be a big loss. Because you saw, they paid $110 million for this thing.
Is this really another Taylor Swift psyop?
Oh, well, there she is.
Well,
there you go again.
To get Swifties to sign up for Peacock? Is that what we're doing here?
No, I bet. I think they've already signed up because her Eras Tour thing was put on Peacock last month, so they're probably already there. They've already got all the Swifties' parents' money from that.
AI was asked who the next head coach at Alabama is going to be, and it just gives a short list. Lane Kiffin with a bio, Dabo Swinney, Steve Sarkisian, Dan Lanning, which is out, Glenn Schumann, Georgia defensive coordinator, and then the second tier is Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin. I'm going to say AI doesn't know football too well because I don't think there's a chance in hell Glenn Schumann's going to be the head coach at Alabama. Tiger David, Sports Surge, watch NFL free on internet app on TV. Do you know what he speaks of? There's so many apps out there.
Yeah, I just clicked on it, and it says malicious site blocked. Don't listen to Tiger David. He's trying to get y'all into some... Vladimir Putin's probably involved in this one somehow.
Oh, man.
This is probably some bootleg Russian feed that they're going to bust you for.
Excuse me. 601-897-1059. Let me go over here to X and see if there's any... Let's see here. Any breaking news so far? Because if you're not checking this, then you're out. Because it'll pop up quick. Let me just make sure as we get to the top of the hour. I am not seeing anything. Let's see. Joel Klatt on 3.com explains why Steve Sarkisian will not accept the Alabama job. Quote, now that he's at Texas, it doesn't make a lot of sense for him to go back to Alabama because he's his own man. He's built this in his own image. He's not in the shadow or footsteps of anybody else. This is Sark's program, If you go to Alabama, you will be in Nick Saban's shadow. I don't think Sark is wanting that job. Also, I do have other information that was passed along from another Alabama insider that, and this matters, Sark's wife doesn't want to leave Alston. That matters. Miss Terry loved Tuscaloosa. That matters. So I would take Sark off the board. Joel Klatt takes Sark off the board. I do think it's down to D'Amico Ryans and Kalen DeBoer. Just my hunch from everything we're getting fed here. And it could be totally wrong. It could be Lane Kiffin may end up being the guy. I doubt it. I just can't. Do you feel less and less and less that it's Lane Kiffin?
I think so.
And, a lot of people talk about, why would it not be Lane Kiffin? Look, that Joey Freshwater thing is a real thing. And that pissed a lot of people off, believe it or not. I mean, that was a real thing. Greg McElroy also gives 0% chance to Dabo Swinney. Do you think Dabo has called or has his agent call inquiring about that? Do you think he'd want the job? I think he'd probably want the job. Also, if you missed it, Quinn Ewers has officially announced he will return for the 2024 season. And I think at least today you have to take Alabama off the board as a high end. And let me go over here and see how this affected the national championship odds. You can go to AmeriStarCasino.com/Vicksburg, get the bet builder. Championship odds. Yes, absolutely it did. All right, Georgia has the number one odds still for the 2025 national championship in college football. 24-25. 3.5 to 1. Ohio State number 2 at 6 to 1. That's making a little more sense now when you look at some of the guys they're bringing into the portal. And, of course, they've recruited extremely well. Oregon now up to number 3 at 7 to 1. Texas 10 to 1 at number 4. Alabama has moved all the way back to 5. Alabama has the same odds as Ole Miss at 11 to 1. So they have dropped drastically from number 2 down to number 5. If you're an Alabama fan and you want some good value for next year, it's there. 11 to 1. Same as Ole Miss. LSU still at 14 to 1 along with Michigan at 14 and 1 as well. Got to take a time out. We're brought to you by Madison PTS. We'll be out there here in the coming weeks. You can ask about cage rentals, all the stuff they've got. They can help you with numbers like Rapsodo, Pitch Logic, Ball, and more. 601-898-1828. Back in a bit.
Thank you.
WRKS Pickens Jackson, where it's
Time to
take a ride. Yes, we're back with Jake Wimberly on the Afternoon Drive. It's live, it's local, and it's on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Hour 3 on the way right now, courtesy of 5050 I-55 North Suite F, Capital Grill, your happy hour and afternoon destination. 18 TVs to get the game of your choice. Handcrafted foods, beverage specials, Capital Grill, here to help you wind down your day. Michelob Ultra, Bud Light, courtesy of Southern Beverage. Please drink responsibly. Change up your afternoon and do it with friends with Capital Grill of Jackson. Drew DeArmond joined us in hour number 1, TighterInsider.com. Rafael Esparza, MyBookie.ag. At hour number 2, Michael Bratton, that SEC podcast, will join us next segment. We'll get his thoughts on the Alabama situation, who he thinks will be the next coach, and more. You can call us 601-897-1059. That is the Malone Roofing caller line, 601-885-3776. Grizz, Dennis Dodd says Dabo is lobbying for the Bama job. Beav, do you think Dabo is I think that's absolutely true. What do you think? I don't know that Dabo has a shot at this. I think 7 years ago, he probably would have. What do you think? But how big of a shot? I mean, Greg McElroy says he has 0% chance to get it. 0. So I don't think so. And Vegas obviously takes this seriously. They moved Alabama down to 11 to 1. Who has the better 11 to 1 odds, Bama or Ole Miss? Bama? I think Bama. Even still, I think it's Bama. But again, you look at it, Georgia, and then the next best is going to be Texas. As far as the odds, I think, are concerned. Quinn Ewers is coming back to Texas. Dan Lanning is going back to Oregon. And we'll see what happens. Georgia corner A.J. Harris has committed to Penn State. He was in the transfer portal. And this is big for Ohio State as well. Emeka Ibuka is coming back to Ohio State. Let's see here. 3-hump camel. Well, let me go here first. Carlos. I don't see Bama offering Kiffin the job, but if they did, he would be gone from Oxford faster than a cat can lick its rear end. Yes, he would. DB, regardless of who's the next coach at Alabama, how about reaching out and paying Joe Brady to be the OC? We truly know he was the reason for the 2019 LSU Natty. DB. Yeah, Joe Brady, his name is cooled to some degree. And, I'm assuming he still has value as far as, what people think of him as a possible college coach, and it could come back. He could come back around and be in college. I don't know this Bama. 3-hump camel. I think Bama should hire Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo's been quiet. I think he takes the year off. I don't know where he lands or comes back to, but I don't know that Bama's going to look that way either. PT for MSU. I'm sure Dabo is lobbying for it, but he's lost his fastball. Bama would be crazy to hire him, and I agree. Joe in Possum Neck. Great seat for the show this afternoon, lazy man hunting. B, what do you think about that? What is Joe doing? Can you describe that photo?
He's hunting.
Yeah, but what is he in?
He's in a hunting space.
Is he on the ground or is he elevated?
Well, I can see the ground. He's on the ground in a hunting space.
That would be called a deer blind.
That's what I said.
And he's looking over a green field. Joe, is that a deer out there that you took a picture of? Is that one way out there? I can't tell. It's like you may be watching one. It's a good shooting lane that you got there, Joe. I like that. All right, let's move on, shall we? All right, so let me ask you this. Let's just assume for a minute, I don't think it's going to be. Mike Norvell was the guy. Would Deion Sanders be a serious candidate at Florida State?
Oh, okay, let's see. Was he a serious candidate last year before he went to Colorado? I know that was the quote-unquote buzz for a bit, but was that real?
That's a great question. I think that he would at least get a shot at it. Now, I don't think Mike Norvell's going anywhere, but I think he would get a shot. Let's shift over to the NFL real quick. Top 10 coaches, NFL coaches of all time. Belichick, where does he rank among these? This is Brian DiArdo, CBSSports.com. Let me go straight to the top. Is Bill Belichick, is he the greatest coach of all time in the NFL?
No, I can't say that definitively. He's up there.
They have him number one. I think forever there will be now questions because of Tom Brady. That will cloud that just a little bit. Vince Lombardi, too. Who would you say is number one? Is it Vince Lombardi still?
For right now. Yeah.
I mean, Lombardi had a gaudy 74% regular season winning percentage, and he was 9-1 in the postseason, with the Packers posting impressive postseason wins over Jim Brown and the Cleveland Browns. Also, Tom Landry's Cowboys twice, Hank Stram's talented Chiefs team in the Super Bowl. I would put Belichick at 1, just like this, Lombardi 2. 3 is where it really gets kind of cloudy. Louvier is not going to like this. They have Don Shula 3rd. But, I mean, Shula won 328 regular season games, 347 total, which remains an all-time record. 33 seasons in the NFL, 31 wins, 31 winning seasons. Of course, 72 Dolphins were undefeated. Is Shula the best ever in the NFL? I don't think most people would put him there, but they have him at 3. Number 4, George Halas. Number 5 on this list, Paul Brown. Number 6, Chuck Noll. Number 7, Bill Walsh. course, you look at what Bill Walsh did with the San Francisco 49ers. An amazing run for Bill Walsh. 1984 was one of the greatest teams in NFL history. That team won 15 regular season games and overwhelmed Dan Marino and the Dolphins in the Super Bowl. Tom Landry right there as well, number 8. And number 9, Joe Gibbs. And number 10, Curly Lambeau. Carlos. So who's on Michigan's short list when Harbaugh splits to the NFL? Excuse me, that's a great question. And well, let me ask you this. As we move through this, is Harbaugh really leaving Michigan? I think that he still probably is. And I would guess a short list, you got to go Brian Kelly, I think, 1 at LSU. I think you have to give the offensive coordinator, a look there at Michigan. And I have no idea if a gnat just flew in my throat or what. But I cannot make that thing work. Sorry about that. I think you have to look at the OC at Michigan. I think you have to look at Brian Kelly. And then I think you have to look at a couple other guys as well. You could look towards maybe, I don't know that Lincoln Riley gets a look. I mean, Lincoln Riley, is that meat sizzling still, or is it fading just a little bit? Let's go to Larry. Larry, welcome in.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, brother.
I was listening to your NFL coaches list. Every time I get ready to call in, y'all always do great content. But any list that has Walsh or Don Shula that low, it can't be accurate. And Paul Brown. Paul Brown is going to always be at either 1 or 2. And if you're going to put Coach Belichick at 1, and I think he got an asterisk by that because he basically had the greatest player of all time. So, I mean, if you're going to put him up there, you got to have Paul Brown right there. Walsh, you got to have him up there as well, and Don Shula. But I thought it was so crazy that, 3 of the last coaches that we have experienced dynasties, all 3 of them retired in the same or basically, walked away from the job at some point or some type of fashion, which is in, Coach Carroll, Saban, and Belichick, and they all was on the coaching staff at one point in time as well in some form or facet, which is crazy. And also, it's only 3 coaches to me in my mind that can handle the caliber of Alabama, because not only you got to have the revenue, you got to have the rankings of the kids that want to see you come there to the university, because even though Alabama has the stature, Alabama had that stature before Nick Saban got there, but they wasn't winning at a certain point. So in order for those guys to come back, they can say DeBoer, but he's not a name that rings bell. It's only 3 people. You got 2 active coaches, which is obviously Ole Miss's coach, Lane Kiffin. You got Coach Prime. And the third one, I don't know, it's going to bring controversy, but I do know, and we all know, money makes sense. The last one is Urban Meyer. That's the only one. And so out of those 3, nobody else can handle it, that job, that caliber, that status, and for the recruiting and the NIL and everything that it brings, that's the only 3 people that can basically facet it and actually get some type of results of what you need to. But thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, Larry. Good call. 601-897-1059. We're brought to you by the MHSA. Officially become official today. 601-924-6400. Officially become official with MHSA in the sport that you love. Learn more today by going to MISSHSA.com.
Want to get smart.
Okay, we're back. I'm ready. It's more The Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly, where he's live and local on Jackson Sports Authority, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, and online at thezone1059.com.
Brought to you by Capital Orthopedic. Online at capitalortho.com. Grab your same-day appointments in Flowood, Madison, Clinton, Brookhaven, Hazelhurst Kosciuszko, move better, live better, be better with Capital Orthopedic. Online at capitalortho.com, 601-987-8200. Michael Bratton, that SEC podcast on X, on YouTube, all over the place. Best SEC podcast in the country. And that is a fact. The rankings show that. Michael, welcome in, sir. How are you?
Hey, now that the dynasty is officially decayed, I'm doing great, Jake. How are you?
I'm doing good. As a Tennessee fan, I'm sure you're torn, right? Because you feel that way, I'm sure. But then you're like, okay, I got to kind of be objective here, but maybe not. Were you shocked by the announcement yesterday?
Oh, yeah. And I think like everybody else, I had to double and triple check to make sure this was actual news being reported, not some troll account that was trying to fool us all for kicks or whatever. But, yeah, the timing of it and apparently, I mean, he was working up to the day he made the decision. And he just did an interview with ESPN. I don't know if you've caught it yet, but he said literally 5 minutes before the team meeting where he announced he was going to retire, he didn't know if he was going to do it or not. So, yeah, pretty stunning news.
So when you look at obviously we know about Saban. We know about everything he did for Tuscaloosa. We've talked about this, for almost 2 days now about what he's meant to that program and that town. Him now out the door, what does this do towards the SEC? Does this reset Alabama? Does it bring them back to the pack? I mean, we'll talk about who could the next guy be here in a minute, but I wouldn't want to be that guy to follow him.
Right, and you hear that narrative, but these guys, the way they're wired, Jake, these alpha coaches, I mean, they're not going to be scared by it. I truly don't think, even though it's a no-win situation. But hey, most of these guys got into it, Jake, to win a national championship. And if you go to Alabama today, short of maybe Georgia and maybe Ohio State, that may be the only other place, you're set up to win that national championship a lot sooner than you ever would wherever you're at. So it's an elite job. Don't kid yourself, and they'll find a quality candidate. But in terms of how this resets things, I think it's bad for college football that we lost such an icon, that we lost kind of the face of the game, and just a little something will be lost from it. But at the same time, I really think this kind of opens it up a little bit to where parity is probably not the right word, but I think we'll have more of a rotation of who wins the SEC, who wins the national championship. I was just looking at it yesterday. Ironically, Jake, the last 10 national champions, it was either Alabama or it was a team that beat Alabama. So, I mean, they're literally a factor in every national championship race, and I don't know if that's truly good for the sport.
Yeah, I was looking at the Vegas odds, courtesy of Ameristar Casino Penn Gaming. Since yesterday, Alabama's moved from second behind Georgia in the way too early national championship odds to 11-1 back in the pack. And so I would say Vegas thinks it's definitely going to make a difference. We had Drew DeArmond on Tighter Insider first hour. He said, I want to get your thoughts on this because I know you're plugged in all over the SEC. He is hearing it's down to 3. It's not going to be Kiffin. It's either going to be Kalen DeBoer, DeMarco Ryans, or Steve Sarkisian. Do you agree with that? Are you hearing something else? If you were just for fun throwing at the dartboard, who you got?
Yeah, I think one name that I would add to that would be Mike Norvell at Florida State. Just given all the uncertainty of the future of Florida State and what league they're going to be in, they just went undefeated, Jake, obviously, and they didn't make the playoff. That says a lot about that league, and just the fact that, and credit Mike Norvell for doing it, but his roster a lot through NIL, a lot through these transfers that a good majority of them are off to the NFL. So he's almost having to rebuild his roster this offseason. I think there's a lot of signs that point to Mike Norvell being a legitimate candidate for this job as well.
When you look at just, Georgia, I think obviously is, you can say, hey, they are the, odds-on favorite to win the Southeastern Conference. Does this move Texas right to number 2?
I guess on paper, Jake, but I'm not buying all this Texas hype. I'm truly not. And I know that may sound crazy. They just went to the playoff, but they fell flat in the playoff. And it's winning the Big 12. That's one thing, and they did it one time out of like the last 14 years. Coming into this league, week in, week out, having a difficult row. But I don't think it's any slam dunk. I mean, I would be more surprised, Jake, if they went undefeated than they went 8-4. You know what I mean? So
sure.
That doesn't mean I think they're going 8-4, but I think they'll lose a couple in the SEC because they're just not used to the grind they're about to get into.
Let me ask you about Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. It looks like Kiffin, unless something drastically changes, he'll be at Ole Miss next year. Do you agree with Vegas? 11-1 odds, right there with Alabama, top 5, top 10 type program. I mean, you look at what Ole Miss has done in the transfer portal. Yes, Quinshon Judkins will be playing at Ohio State next year, but your thoughts on the momentum that is going on in Oxford?
Yeah, and he may be the big winner of this whole thing, Jake, because he couldn't beat Nick Saban. Obviously, they don't play Alabama next season, but they may face, or at least may have faced Alabama in the SEC championship game. So I think that is something to consider as well. But yeah, I think, in my mind, Jake, Ole Miss has gone from playoff contender is what a lot of people are labeling them. I'm already saying national championship contender. I think they should be of that caliber next season.
Well, so when you look at it, let me ask you this same question for Missouri. Does Missouri deserve the same love and respect, so to speak? I mean, Vegas has them down a little bit further. If the guys that are coming back produce like they did this year, can Missouri make that similar run?
Yeah, I think so. Year 2 under their offensive coordinator Kirby Moore, a lot of these quarterbacks and overall offense takes a big jump in year 2 of a system. It's going to be a little bit more difficult replacing defensive coordinator Blake Baker. But if you look at Missouri's schedule, I mean, it's a joke. And I don't know if you saw this the other day, Jake, but I ran the numbers of just the combined records of every SEC team next season based on their opponents for this season. And Missouri's is far and away the easiest, just based on that metric, easiest schedule in the SEC. They do have to go to Alabama. All of a sudden, Alabama doesn't look quite as fearsome without Nick Saban. Missouri's going to win 10, 11 games next year.
Yeah, we were talking about that list you put out yesterday. That was good work, as always. And let me ask you this, and we'll get you on your way here. Way too early. I mean, you look at Sam Pittman, coming off of a year where he's got to produce. You look at Shane Beamer at South Carolina. You look at Billy Napier at Florida. Could we see a potential coaching churn inside the league again next year?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of these coaches, I don't even know how they survived this offseason, Jake. Sam Pittman specifically is who I'm talking about. But, yeah, Billy Napier and the grind he's got upcoming, it seems very unlikely that he's going to survive unless they take a massive jump this offseason. And there's always guys you don't expect, like Nick Saban. And Lane Kiffin's always eyeing another job, seemingly. So, yeah, I think this is just the nature of it. And now that we're going to a 12-team format, Jake, I think there's about 8 programs in the SEC, or at least their fans, that think it's their birthright to make the college football playoff. And, they're not all going to make it. So there's going to be heck to pay for these coaches that fail to make the 12-team playoff annually. I truly do think.
Great stuff as always. Michael Bratton, you can find him on X, SEC Mike. You can search it. He's right there. Also, that SECpodcast.com. You can check him out and Cousin Shane. They do a great job all the time with SEC football. Michael, I appreciate you as always, sir. We'll do it again very soon.
All right. Thanks for having me, Jake.
Thanks so much. We're brought to you by Clinton Body Shop, 601-924-2159. OEM factory certified. All the manufacturers you trust. Go to ClintonBodyShop.com. Your family's safety and your car's value with Clinton Body Shop. Back.
This is the home of the Chuck Oliver Show every weekday from 10 till noon on Mississippi's live and local sports authority. And where? We're back to Jake Quiverly with the afternoon drive on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by Ranco Transmission, 1460 Old Brander Road in Flowood, 601-939-9184, 50-plus years, foreign and domestic transmission repair with our good friends at Ranco Transmission. We're also brought to you by Ameristar Casino. Get out and play today. Appreciate Michael Bratton jumping in. We'll have all these interviews on the podcast. Just search Jake Wimberly Show on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify. You can find it on iHeartRadio app, just about everywhere. YouTube now. Just search Jake Wimberly Show. We'll have them up tomorrow. All right, let's see. Carlos, who's on Michigan? Oh, I think we answered that. I think if Harbaugh is off to the NFL, I think you got to look at the offensive coordinator at Michigan. I think you got to look at Brian Kelly. Do you have another name for Michigan? Would this sound crazy? Pete Carroll? Is he too old?
Too old. I was just going to say that. At Michigan, I'd stay in-house.
Probably.
Someone who's already there, know what you're doing, just keep it going. Because, okay, we keep talking about the Alabama short list. Well, let's say that Harbaugh decides next week he's leaving. Well, then it's an even shorter list for Michigan. And it's just not that much out there.
It's not. It is. It's very, very difficult. You might look at Mike Mickens. He's the offensive coordinator, or defensive passing game coordinator coach. You may look at, I think, definitely the offensive coordinator at Michigan, Brian Kelly. Flowtown goes. Best one you'll hear all day. Mullen to Alabama, and you can text us 601-885-3776. Mullen to Alabama. He hates recruiting, and Bama recruits itself. Mullen goes in knowing he only has a few years there because no big-name coach really wants to come behind Saban. When Mullen rides off into the sunset in 2 or 3 years, Sark, Dabo, Kirby, or Kiffin come in as the savior. They rebuild Bama and have a statue built beside Saban. I'd love it just to see Bama fans complain for the next 2 to 3 years. I don't think it's Dan Mullen. I like this, but I'll play this along. If it was Mullen, they would burn Tuscaloosa to the ground, wouldn't they? They don't want Mullen. Tiger David. A list in the NFL top 10 coaches without Bill Parcells is not a list. I tend to agree with that. Brian Kelly wouldn't go down to a Michigan job. Nick. Without Belichick's defense, Brady doesn't pass Joe, the real GOAT. There's probably a lot to that. Is Joe really the GOAT? Is Brady a facade GOAT? Paper GOAT?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. In my brain.
Talking about Joe Montana, by the way.
Yeah. In my brain and in my heart, Joe Montana. Now,
Joe Montana was good.
He's there. It goes back to that coaching thing because he's talking about Larry. Larry mentioned Walsh. Yeah, I don't know. Belichick doesn't do it without Brady. Well, Brady did it without Belichick for one. I don't know. When you get into that debate, these quarterbacks and coaches go hand in hand. I want to say definitively Joe Montana always did, but that's just fan speak. That's childhood speak. I don't know, man. I mean, it's hard. It's so hard to argue with Brady, though.
It is.
7 Super Bowls. I know it's not all about Super Bowls.
10 total.
But, yeah, 10 total. 10 Super Bowls.
In the free agent era.
Who was it? Let me look back. I'm trying to see here. Nick. He refers to Brady as the luckiest player in sports history. You don't get to 10 Super Bowls with luck. I mean, you got to have some luck, but you're not just a lucky player.
Yeah, I can't.
After getting to 10 Super Bowls. Hey, Nick, get it out of my face.
DB, hiring Coach Prime at Alabama will be worse than spraying cold water on a hot grease fire. It's all about fit. I don't think Prime, he wouldn't put up with being told what to do, and they're not going to put up with Prime. Like here's the deal. He wouldn't have to do what he did at Colorado. He wouldn't have to gut the whole place. And you put Deion in a place like that, I think he'd probably win. I mean, I think Nick Saban has teed up whoever the next coach is going to be. I don't think it's going to be Deion, but playing along here, I think that whoever they put in there, they got a chance to go in right away and win 10 ball games. Louvier. Nick Saban is no longer the coach, and Vegas thinks that makes a difference. Vegas also thinks water is wet. That is true. Space Ghost, what are your thoughts on Will Rogers if DeBoer takes the job at Alabama? I mean, DeBoer, if he takes the Washington job, Just like outside of D'Amico Ryans, who's in the NFL, and I say outside of that because that doesn't affect that roster. D'Amico Ryans takes the Alabama job. The next coach still has the roster. Those guys are under contract unless they're free agents and all that stuff. So that roster's set. But any college coach, Kalen DeBoer, Steve Sarkisian, Mike Norvell, Deion Sanders, those programs' windows in the transfer portal open for 30 days. Coach leaves, portal's open. So I guess the question is, would DeBoer want to bring Will Rogers or Dylan Johnson or some of those players with him? Because, I mean, you remember what happened? I mean, Deion brought Louis, right? I mean, he brought several guys from Jackson State. His sons, a couple other guys, took them to Colorado. Or, because here's what I do think is almost a certainty. If it's a complex passing game coordinator like DeBoer or Sark, and even Mike Norvell's offense is tailored differently. I don't think it's Jalen Milroe. I think Alabama did what they needed to do to make it work with Milroe, but I don't think Milroe's the quarterback at Alabama next year. Going forward, I do not think that he's going to be the guy. I think he hits the portal, and I think he ends up somewhere else. Maybe goes back to Texas, not necessarily the Longhorns, but he ends up at Houston or another program, and I think he's off and gone. And I don't think Alabama is going to be immune to attrition. I think that this program will have attrition, regardless of who the coach is. I mean, I know they're trying to keep it intact and keep it in-house and hold on, we got your coach coming, let's talk. And I think they will talk. I think they will honor that. Those players will honor Nick Saban with that. But I still think that they will not be immune to attrition. They will lose some players. I think Milroe is one of them. So to answer your question, I know Will Rogers just got to Washington. I mean, I think if DeBoer said, hey, you want to go back closer to home? You want to go play 1 year in Alabama? You want to go with me? I think he'd probably consider it. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, because you think about it, he just had to move up there. Any of these guys that move around, apartment, get to know, get registered, all this stuff. Now you got to pack it up and leave. But you're going to play at Alabama. You're going to, and a lot of people say, why in the world would you take Will Rogers? Well, why did he pick Will Rogers out of all the transfer portal quarterbacks anyway? He obviously felt that was the guy he wanted. That was the fit he needed to replace Michael Penix in his offense. So it's not out of the realm of imagination to think that he may say, hey, won't you and Dylan Johnson come go with me? Maybe pick another player or two and hey, y'all come on. We got so many spots open. Let's go play in the SEC. I think it's possible. And then again, Will Rogers may say, I've already moved. I'm going to ride it out right here 1 year. One more, and I got to take a break. Will H. Joe Montana or Joe Montana? Adam Vinatieri was more important than Brady in those. No, see, you can't do that. I mean, he was important, but Beeb, you can't say Vinatieri was more important, can you?
For two of them, you could argue, but someone had to drive him down to the point where Vinatieri could hit those field goals.
That is true. That is true. Hey, we're brought to you by Bailey Lumber. They're open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. And, of course, Brandon location is open. Jackson location is open. 2150 Mississippi Highway 471 in Brandon, 4525 John Lynch Street in Jackson. BaileyLumber.com, where you can learn more today. Shop at Bailey Lumber. Get great GAF roofing specials on all roofing products. Also, Trex decking specials, doors, windows, hardware, supplies, lumber, and more. BaileyLumber.com. One more segment to go on.
And action!
We got that and a whole lot more around here. It's the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly.
What's the score?
He's got that, along with the hottest sports stories of the day on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by Waze Energy Drinks, a great energy drink. Sugar-free, zero sugar, high caffeine energy drink. Portions of the proceeds always go to the Gary Sinise Foundation, and it's a Mississippi company buried in Mississippi's heritage. That is their mission every day. 4 great flavors to get your hands on as you move through the year. Revive, a classic energy drink. Respond, a great pomegranate peach flavor. Also Engage. I was on one earlier today. Sour lime flavor, also Rescue, orange cream sickle type drink as well. Go to WazeEnergy.com, and of course you can find them on Facebook.com/WazeEnergy. We're also brought to you by Williams Newman Williams. When you need a win, car wreck, truck accident, nursing home neglect. Online at WNWLegal.com. We appreciate Drew DeArmond, Rafael Esparza, Michael Bratton jumping on. We'll tee all that up for you for tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll have Keith Hardy in, kicking it with Keith. We'll see what else happens. I think tomorrow, at some point during the show, we'll be talking about a new Alabama football coach. What do you think?
Well, the timeline's, 3 days? We keep hearing. Well, that'd be kind of like I don't know, but that'd be kind of like a Friday afternoon
news dump. But are certain things able to climb out of the Friday news dump and become relevant? Like, I think that would.
Oh, yeah. Well, if anything, that would be it, yes.
But you're right. Typically, be it politics or sport, anything negative, people dump it on Friday, Saturday.
You know what? Okay, it works because no matter what, Bama fans are going to be angry, probably, no matter who you hire. So if you do it on a Friday afternoon, the news cycle the next day, we move into the NFL playoffs. So maybe it takes their attention away a little bit. So they're not quite as angry.
You may be right. Now, Chris brought up a good point. A friend of mine texted me. He said, hey, just putting this out there, Joe Montana never had to come from behind in a Super Bowl. Does that put him at a different... I mean, look, Joe Montana is one of the greatest ever. Unbelievable. You could make the case. Nobody ever says this. Well, if there wasn't no Joe Montana, there would be no Bill Walsh. But Bill Walsh had a stacked franchise. I mean, that 49ers team back then was unbelievable. But just something to put out there. Rhino on the Cowboy Maloney's text line. Hey, I'm Houdat all the way and love me some Drew Brees, but Brady is the GOAT. 7 Super Bowl wins to go along with 10 will never happen again. You know, we say that a lot in sports. It never will happen again, but I don't know that that's ever going to happen again. Don't know that that'll ever happen again, especially the way free agency is and stuff. And think about that. Tom Brady and the Patriots with Belichick did this in the free agency era that we're still in, obviously, where the league is built for mediocrity. It's what the league wants. And they did it anyway. Unnamed texter, Jake, I think Dan Lanning may come over with Dylan Gabriel just because he knows he can win a bunch of games with a seasoned quarterback. Well, Dan Lanning took his name out of it today. He said he took his name totally out of it. What about Malzahn from a listener? I don't think. Look, do you think Bama fans would put up with that? They'd put a wall around Tuscaloosa and keep him out of there. Monkeys riding dogs. Who knows? It may just be Butch Jones. He has jokes. Where is Butch Jones now? What is he doing? Is he even coaching high school football? I don't even know where he's at.
Isn't he an analyst at Alabama?
You know, he may be. I remember at one point he became an analyst there in the Nick Saban rehabilitation camp. All right, let me get over here. And what do you think about Pat McAfee bringing Aaron Rodgers back on today, even though and he did actually come back on today? Clay Travis said he didn't, but I'm seeing now after a listener said that he brought Aaron Rodgers back on today. He'll turn on ESPN. Let's see here. Real unnamed texter. Montana had the comeback against the Bengals. Oh, he sure did. He sure did. I remember that now. Ickey Woods when he was with the Bengals. Ickey Woods, Boomer Esiason, that Super Bowl.
Ickey Shuffle.
Ickey Shuffle, man.
Well, totally forgot. Butch Jones is coaching at Arkansas State.
Oh, that's right. He sure is. Matt Daddy says Dabo. I just don't think Dabo. 7 years ago, I think it was a slam dunk on Dabo. Now, I can't. Nick Saban says he and his wife and their health are fine, that his age just caught up with him, and he didn't have the energy to do the job like he needed to. And he said that's really it. He said everybody's healthy. I'm healthy. Miss Terry's healthy. Also, he says, quote, I'm going to keep working. I don't want to get up in the morning and watch Netflix. I want to do something. I'd probably like to do broadcasting, but someone told me once you can't start a broadcasting career at 80. Do you think Nick Saban will be on somewhere within a booth? I don't know that Nick Saban calls games, like as a color analyst. Do you think he'd do booth work? I think that he probably would. Real unnamed texter. Oh, we got that one. Let's see. Tiger David. Coach, quote, takes his name out, so we say it's done. This is a top job. I'm just telling you, this what they're reporting. Dan Lanning said he's not doing it. Dexter. I've heard it's Kalen DeBoer. Good source. A lot of people like DeBoer. His name has got a lot of traction this afternoon. And Rhino, Saban will be a draft analyst. That'd be a good thing for him, wouldn't it? Maybe he'd take Mel Kiper's job. Let's see here. What else have we missed today? Did we get any other? Let me make sure that we don't have any Alabama coaching news here before we get out of here today. Hey, how bad's that weather going to get in the morning? What do you think?
Oh, you're really asking me?
Yeah. You're the weatherman here. You're our official weatherman.
My model says it's going to kick up mid-morning. We've got almost 100% chance of rain.
Well, Space Ghost says he almost hit a buck out there. Be careful. Missed it by a foot. Now, I don't know how good he is at gauging distance, but a foot, that's pretty darn close. Hey, what was this thing on this ESPY thing you were telling us about? We never touched it, but ESPN faked their way into some awards with some fake names. They've been doing it for like 15 years.
Yeah, now Emmys. Remember,
Emmys.
ESPYs are fake awards that ESPN doles out to. They can decide whatever they want, but Emmys. So Emmys, it came out that ESPN, basically what was happening here, and they say this may date back all the way to 1997.
Good Lord.
But it's definitely been since 2010. ESPN has had to give back 37 Emmys because now this is it seems like a pretty tangled web, but basically from what I understand, what was happening here, College Game Day was one of the biggest named in this. So College Game Day was getting the awards, but ESPN, because the individual hosts weren't eligible, Corso, Herb Street, such like that, they weren't eligible, but they were, so ESPN was submitting fake names to the industry, the place that gives out the Emmys. They were using, okay, check this out. Kirk Herbstreit, they would use the name Kirk Henry. Lee Clark was really Lee Corso. Dirk Howard, Desmond Howard. Tim Richard, Tom Rinaldi. 7 years, Emmys, Stephen Ponder for Sam Ponder. So they were making up these names, and they would list them because it was for the shows. The individuals weren't supposed to win it, but they were listing these fake names, and they were listing them as associate producers. Therefore, it's a show award, so the show would get the award. ESPN would take it. They would have the Emmy re-engraved to say Lee Corso or Shelley Smith.
Because you had to have a producer, not a talent.
Yeah, and hand them to the talent. So these talent, there you could say Emmy award-winning talent Kirk Herbstreit. Well, that wasn't a thing. Kirk Herbstreit did not win an Emmy.
And nobody picked up on this until now?
No. They say it dated back to 1997. Who was it? Linda Cohn. Linda Cohn won 4 Emmys, and she posted on Instagram, she's like, these are my 4 babies or something, and she had to give them back because she didn't actually win them, and allegedly it wasn't on her, it wasn't on the talent. They're trying to say that they weren't involved in this. It was just ESPN. So ESPN, basically what it boils down to is in the end, ESPN could say, oh, look at all this award-winning talent we had. But they were really ineligible to win this. ESPN totally fixed it.
Because the Emmy Award is, these awards were based on basically production, people who
it's supposed to go to the overall show,
the
people behind the scenes that make it happen and all that. Talent was not eligible until they changed the rules in, I think just last year they changed the rules. Now talent is eligible, but for the 37 that they allegedly won, they weren't eligible.
Good Lord, ESPN. It's the over-under on deer calls in on Space Go. The deer calls in on Space Go's horrible driving. That could probably happen. J-Rock, the reason they didn't catch it is because nobody gives a crap about the Emmys. And 3-hump camel. Sounds about as stupid as the Heisman rules. Hey, thanks to Drew DeArmond, Rafael Esparza, and Michael Bratton. We'll see you tomorrow. I am sure we will have a new Alabama head coach. Remember, ketchup is king, bacon's a delicacy. Aloha means goodbye. See you then.